Um, One of my last points was around the program design for the African learner and the issues that accompany the African learner when they come to our institutions. And that is related to what Mr. Talai said around the pre-screening that needs to take place. Now, pre-screening does not necessarily pick that up. You meet the student at registration, you meet them there with their parents, you don't know what their home situation is like. We are also not in the game of making the maritime programs something for the elite or to continue a perception that there's been in previous decades of who this program is for. Most of our students do not come from private schools, they're just ordinary South African, Black African students. That is the bulk of our students. So we are trying to make it work. We are finding help within institutions and partner institutions to find programs to help our students. One of the programs to help our students is through the Wellness at Sea that we have every year for our first years to be able to prepare them for a life on a ship. Just to talk about what happens when you have an opportunity. It's also what Mr. Lai mentioned, and you interview 30 people and you end up with one candidate. So what is happening elsewhere? And through our partner universities we have learned it. Most of our partner universities are within a maritime nation. Now South Africa is not a maritime nation. We had an opportunity to become one in the late 90s into the 2000s. We don't know what would have happened, but I think I can only speculate if Safmarine had stayed and it had actually grown and developed from there, if we would have been able to become an actual maritime nation. So maritime nation, maritime is within the culture of that nation. They eat, breathe, sleep maritime. We are not that kind of nation. When we have opportunities and trying to find students, half the time those students has now found jobs at Checkers. They are not busy working on a yacht. They are just doing something to put food on the table. It means their maritime knowledge has shrunk. They haven't used it, they haven't been able to put it into practice. It's not an excuse, it's a fact of what is happening. If you don't practice something, you actually lose the skill. Because the programs are highly theoretical based and we don't have ships to place the students on, they don't get the practical experience to be able to be ready for an interview 2, 3, 4, 5 years after having qualified. So that is just to give some kind of perspective as well. That is why with the new programs, the bachelor programs, it will not require for students to first complete the sea-going component. The prerequisite is required by SSW, the 12 months or 18 months sea time. They will first finish their theoretical knowledge and thereafter they will decide, do they want to be a seafarer or they're going to graduate and find a job on land. Because more and more, and we've realized that we cannot just focus on seafaring. Otherwise, the maritime education programs will remain at risk. We need to do something else beyond that because we don't have ships. So we can't give the students a practical experience. So everything keeps coming back to that point in history of what happened. So some of the initiatives, and it is one of the key ones, and it was mentioned in the earlier session as well. Some of these 3 institutions are having programs of teaching kids how to swim. Because again, the bulk of our African student learner has a fear of water. So they also need to overcome that bridge to also embrace the maritime industry fully. So we have those campaigns. We have sailing training through partnerships with yachting clubs, exposing students to conferences such as these, awareness programs, they join us, and career awareness, and through psychological support, because more and more there's a great need for psychological support. Many of these students saw an advert or somebody in the community is a seafarer, but they don't know why they're becoming a seafarer. They're just hopping on the bandwagon. And when you ask them, they say, oh, I don't know, so-and-so told me. They said I'm going to sea, they said I'm going to do this. So those are some of the things that we have in place just to understand. And I'm going to conclude now. So, ultimately, as maritime education and training institutions, we want to develop a certain kind of graduate for the industry and for themselves in terms of the kind of adult they are going to be one day. And graduate attributes is one of the key focus areas within institutions of higher learning. One of the attributes that is our responsibility to instill in a student is that they become critical and creative thinkers, that they become knowledgeable practitioners, that they become culturally, environmentally, and socially aware people, that they become effective communicators and people with confidence. One thing that lacks within the African learner is confidence. They always feel they're falling short of their white friends, their white counterpart, the white person sitting next to them in class. We see it as a reality that happens. So it's all these different bridges that the majority of the students in this country must first overcome. By the time they get into an interview, half the time they haven't been prepared, not just by the institution, but parents, communities, societies, to make sure they are able to be functional adults within the society and on board ships. And one of the things we try to instill is a love of learning. In many areas in this country, we don't read. We don't like to read. We're not learning. Parents are not improving their own qualifications. So the students feel a diploma is enough or hardly a diploma is enough. So all of that make up a graduate who ultimately ends up in an interview or ultimately ends up on board a vessel. And that graduate needs to be placed in employment, not only on a ship but also on land, within all the subsectors within the Operation Pakisa. So in closing, it is everyone's responsibility. We need help as institutions for the students who graduate from the institutions to be functional adults in the workplace. We are in challenging times. This country not having ships is really a challenge to the institutions. But I don't know how it's going to be solved, but I thank you so much.